Well, yeah, I guess so then. I hadn't thought about it until you just mentioned it then, but yeah, I think so. For me, what stands out about James Graham, though, is just like the absolute spirit about the guy. You know, he just doesn't like losing at all, does he? Like some of the faces he pulls when he's getting interviewed after they've been beat, and he looks disgusted with himself and everybody around him. You know, it's just a really kind of likable guy just because of that kind of effort that he puts into everything. You know, chasing back hopeless tries for wingers under the post, and he's the only guy within 20 metres of them just because he doesn't want to give up. It's really really good.
Exactly right, and I think him leaving our competition, so stopping being associated with one club over here and going over there, and the only time we got to support him was in an international shirt then. There was no hang-ups with James Graham, so we all got to love that about him as England and I suppose Great Britain fans last year as well, but mostly as England fans, let's face it. We all got to feel that about him, didn't we? We didn't have to hate him for being a Saints player. We got to love that part of him. And famously always throws his runners-up medals away, because whilst he won his first ever grand final, I think he lost every other one he played in. And on either side of the world, I think he lost in total six in 7 years, or 6 in 8 years, or something like that, which is not fair for a man who won a Man of Steel in 2008.
Yeah, no, a player with fantastic hands, absolute 100% commitment guy, and he's prepared to bite the ear off anyone who disagrees. So you can't dislike that, can you? Really, particularly when it's Billy Slater.
There is a rough move about his bad loser behaviour, isn't there? I suppose. Definitely a bad loser.
Bad loser, great player.
Yes.
Nick Clark says, at Nick180, says, from my era, Jamie Peacock was the best he's seen, and obviously from his club, Thompson and Walmsley, goes without saying.
Pause for a second on Nick's fantastic Twitter handle as a St Helens fan. That's wonderful, isn't it? A kind of pun that he's a Saints fan.
It's excellent.
Nick. Obviously he had all his Christmases come together when he got Thompson and Walmsley lining up together for his side. We've mentioned them a lot, but we haven't really talked about them, have we? So, Alan, talk a little bit about Thompson and Walmsley. I think we deserve to more than just say it's obvious that we're going to talk about them. We have to actually talk about them. They deserve that. Yes,
we do. Yeah, they're... As a pairing at the moment, they complement each other fantastically. Walmsley as an impact player, and Thompson as a guy who has an engine that can kind of go on and on. So Walmsley's a bit more old-fashioned in his style, probably, but they're both wonderful props in their own ways. But I think there is something about their differing styles that actually works particularly well at club level.
Yeah, Walmsley.
Does that make sense?
Walmsley wouldn't have been out of place in that Bradford side, would he? In the early noughts.
No.
Whereas Thompson, you sort of feel like could have been the complementary prop to every Alex Walmsley type that's played the game in the last 40 years. He's got all of those kind of abilities of that shorter, bigger engine, relentless kind of player that so many other of the names we've kind of mentioned sort of could be classified as, from those days where you did have to start as a prop and you might come off or you might play the full 80 minutes. And I think Lou Thompson has everything about that. Thompson's career changed. He'd won a grand final in 2014 as an absolute bit part, side note player, hadn't he? And he was, what would he have been then? 19, 20? So I suppose not in his peak as a prop anyway. But his career changed for me when the coaching change happened at St Helens, and his name's escaping to me. I'm trying to remember his name, but the bloody Aussie.
Holbrook.
Yeah, Justin Holbrook. There you go. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Every week I forget someone's name that I should not forget. I think I need to speak to my doctor about this. But yeah, when Holbrook came in, he absolutely changed, didn't he? And since then, he's been so consistent, and he's earned himself a move to the NRL because of that consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He's rapid as well, isn't he? He can move.
Oh yeah, he's scored a few half length of the field tries, hasn't he? I mean, that try.
Yeah, that's a scary sight as a fullback, isn't it?
Yeah, I know it was in a losing effort and right at the end, but he scored the last try of the Super League season so far, doesn't he, against Cass? That one where him and Walmsley basically charged through the middle and powered and paced their way up the pitch and scored.
Yeah. I mean, that's half-back supporting play from your front rower, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not like it's not a elusive run, is it? But it can, when he hits top speed, it's still fast. He can't go sideways as quick as he could go forwards, but when he gets going. Lee Whitnell got in touch, birthday boy Lee Whitnell, at L Whitnell on Twitter. So he gave us the views of his sons as well. So he said, Nicholas says, my favourite is Thomas Burgess because he's big and strong and carries the ball in really hard, which is how I like to play. Plus, he picked me up once. And if you go on Twitter and find Lee's Twitter, there'll be a pictorial evidence of Thomas Burgess picking up Nicholas after an England game. And then Isaac, his other son, said he wanted to tell us that Luke Thompson is his favourite. Which makes Lee sad because Isaac's become a St Helens fan, not a Warrington fan. But Lee went on to say, at my own club, I love the energy, bravery and speed of Joe Philbin. He creates chaos and good things tend to happen off the back of it. Impact player, kind of Walmsley-esque, Al? Walmsley light?
Joe Philbin makes things happen, which is why you notice him and why he becomes your favourite player, isn't it? Or one of your favourites. He's funny. I think of him as a second rower, but he's probably as a prop, isn't he?
He's a middle, isn't he? He's modern day middle. If he starts the game, he starts at 13, but if he comes off the bench, he comes off the bench for Hill or Cooper, sort of thing. Is kind of the way I see it. I don't know.
Yeah, but Lee sums it up really well. He does create chaos, and sometimes that's good things, and sometimes it's not so good things. But you definitely notice him.
I'm a little bit surprised that he didn't talk about our friend Mike Cooper, to be honest, because I think Cooper's one of those actually does quite a lot, and not just the grunt stuff either. He's got a very good offloading game. He's got a bit of a pass at the line, James Graham style of game as well. But maybe because he's just always hovered just below that top tier, he doesn't get the same recognition as Chris Hill, who he's played with for these last few years at Warrington. He gets that recognition because Hill broke through into that international stage and stayed there, whereas Cooper hasn't quite had the same longevity of international career. I think it's a bit strange that Cooper gets put almost secondary to Chris Hill. I think he's every bit as good as Chris Hill, but maybe that's just, I don't know, me thinking that.
There's definitely something about, he was very competent and a good player in the NRL for several years, was Cooper.
Yeah.
In a middling team at St George.
Yeah. So
for me, I look at Cooper and I put him in probably the top 10 props in Super League, I would say.
Yeah, actually, I missed some of Lee's mentions. He said there's no one to rival in Super League. There's no one to rival Thompson and Walmsley. Although Wakey's Fafita is great to watch too. That's another player who makes things happen. Mostly positive, but not necessarily always. But mostly positive is David Fafita. Yep. We had one more in that just missed the rundown now, but David Pye got in touch, another one of our recent guest hosts, and he said Peter Gawley was one of my first heroes as a young Saints fan. I love it when David admits he is a Saints fan, so that's always a good part of it. But Peter Gawley played for St Helens, came down from Workington and moved up from the second row by the looks of it, but played for Saints for 7 or 8 years in the late 70s and early 80s, and played over 200 games for Saints. So that's another one to mention. But yeah, Al, I suppose it's your turn now to mention your favourites, and you had a very lucky spell watching Bradford when it was built around big physical guys, not necessarily just in the prop forwards, but also in the prop forwards.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I've noted down 4 names here. They're not all from the Awesome Foursome, although most of them are. But I'm going to go chronologically. So the first name that I mentioned is a guy who was in the team when I first started watching. And he made the transition to Super League, but only for 1 year, because he was at the end of his career. And that's Carl Fairbank, Concrete, as he's affectionately known, because you certainly didn't run through him. Fantastic, incredibly solid player that you build your team around, and the fact that he could very easily have said in kind of 95, that's enough for me, I'm coming to the end of my career, but actually he did embrace the start of Bullmania, and he's very affectionately known as from the Bradford kind of fans, and he had a very good rep career, kind of late 80s, early 90s, which he's one of those names that you might not necessarily think of, but yeah, Concrete is the first one on my list.
Yeah, his son obviously has gone on to have a career as well, hasn't he? Jacob Fairbank, is that right? Am I thinking of that person?
Well, it's the Fairbank family. There's several of them have played. It's his nephew. Because his brothers are, basically the Fairbanks is a big rugby league dynasty, if you like. But yeah, all of them big guys. And, so basically when Carl retired, he went back to working on his farm, and as far as I'm aware, he's still there. So the other 3 names for me they're all Awesome Foursome players. I'll start with the one that people have mentioned before, which is Stuart Fielden.
Yeah, Stuart Fielden was brilliant, wasn't he?
What a player.
Arguably sort of 2004 to 2006-07, before Willie Mason knocked him out, the best prop in the world, arguably, for a 2 or 3 year span, do you think?
I would say, his finest game for us was the World Club Challenge at the beginning of 2006. Yeah. Where he just basically dominated that game against a very good West Tigers team. He was tempted by the money to bail you all out. He
made the right choice, didn't he, in the end? Probably staved off one of your administrations by a year or 2.
Yeah, probably. But no, in that kind of lead up to that time, he was, you're right. For that kind of 2 or 3 years, he was probably the best prop in the game, I would say, and that's probably both sides of the globe.
Yeah.
And the other 2 names they're great players, but I remember them for specific. They have specific memories that are attached to them. So the first one is Paul Anderson.
Yes. Another goal kicking prop forward.
100% record.
Yeah, perfect touchline conversion record.
Yeah, but my memory of him is the handoff in 2003, I think it was, of Gary Connolly against Leeds. And you have never seen a handoff like it. If you haven't seen it, YouTube it. It's brutal. It's totally fair, but he basically destroys him. It's an unbelievable handoff. It really is.
He was doing it against 33-year-old fullback, but
yeah, but he basically folded him in 2, just by pushing him in the face.
Yeah.
And the last one for me is Joe Vangana, Big Joe. Again, another member of that kind of key 4 players. Again, my key memory of him, is folding a Leeds player in half again. And this time it was Keith Senior, and he absolutely destroyed him, which is not something people often did. And he actually